In this refresh episode,
something evil
is lurking deep inside Alcatraz. And what the heck is a polishing filter, and why am I setting one up? Could my Vieja be my second favorite American cichlid now? And why on earth did they let me buy more plants? I don't know.
I think I'm a pretty nice guy. I mean, I don't want any harm to come to anyone, people or the inmates of my prison fish tanks, but I do have some uninvited, unwanted guests in Alcatraz, and to tell you the truth, and maybe this makes me a bad person, but I want them to go
straight back to hell, where they came from.
The bottom of Alcatraz is littered with these miserable little creatures called Malaysian trumpet snails. They're everywhere, and since my sand is white, they pretty much just look like a bunch of cichlid poop all over the tank. Really ugly. But that's the only bad thing about these guys. They're unsightly, but it's enough for me. Makes me hate them and want them gone, so I can just relax and enjoy my inmates again without trying to avoid looking at the sand where these snails reside all day. They can be really tough to get rid of entirely, and I doubt I'll be able to do that because it's really hard to find every last one of them, especially since they get buried in there, and they reproduce like mad. But I found their weakness, and I fully intend to exploit it. You see, once it gets dark in the room, a bunch of them start their nightly migration towards the top of the tank. All in a straight line right at the water line, which makes them pretty easy to catch and just toss in the garbage. I know, that's mean. I'm a bad person just to toss these guys in the trash so they can suffer. Well, guess what? I hate them enough that it doesn't even bother me at all. That's how evil I am. And the more I do it, the fewer I'm catching, but I've also started to grab a few from the sand during water changes, and it looks a lot better. If you can handle their ugly little shells all over the tank though, they do serve a pretty good purpose in your tanks.
They'll actually eat the leftover food and detritus that's on top of and underneath your sand, which is great. But unlike plecos and other algae eaters that'll do some of this also, these guys will actually eat fish poop. And it is hard to find anything at all that'll eat poop, except for my dogs that'll actually eat their own shit. It's totally disgusting. So maybe I should want these guys around in my tank, but to tell you the truth, I don't.
And if you don't want them, then the best thing you can do is to quarantine your plants for a while and make sure the outside of your fish bag that you brought home the fish in doesn't touch the tank water, because there could be little trumpet snail eggs all over them. I'm really careful with all that stuff, and Alcatraz has never had any plants in it, so I don't know how the hell these trumpet snails ever got in there in the first place. So while I'm declaring war on these unwanted pest snails of mine, I decided to drive to Fish World and actually buy some, guess what? Snails. Not these little bastards, but some more manageable friends. They're called nerite snails. My 180-gallon American cichlid tank has a little algae on the panels, and the driftwood needs the outer decaying parts cleaned off regularly. These nerite snails do the trick, and the sweet thing is, they don't reproduce in the aquariums. They could care less about sex. They just want to eat all day, all night. Sweet, just what I want. So I'm at Fish World watching Jordan catch some for me.
Back 'em up, fishman. Give me my snail prisoners.
So if you have algae issues, or you just like snails, these nerites are pretty great for your tanks. Be warned though, they do have one slight problem about them. Even though they don't like sex and all that, they can leave little eggs all over your tank that you might find less than attractive. The eggs never hatch, of course, they just sit there and mock you. 'Cause you ain't never getting rid of all those tiny little eggs. Nope.
Subscribe or someone dies. Ding ding.
I recently made a visit to a local fish keeper friend of mine's house. His name's Dan Wolf, and his setups were incredible, and he had so much high-tech gear in there that it really put my setups to shame, and it probably would put most of our setups to shame. If you haven't seen that video, make sure you check it out. It's in the upper right corner. But after seeing his setup and what he's doing to make his water so clear, I decided to implement one of those strategies into Alcatraz. And it's something that's going to probably make my water clearer, but at least make my life as a fish keeper a lot easier. And it can do the same for you.
I have 3 big Fluval FX6 canister filters on Alcatraz, keeping the water nice and clear. And I've been stocking them pretty much just like they tell you to. Coarse foam pads, fine foam pads, and then biomedia. And that works great, but those fine pads get pretty clogged up, and it really doesn't take much time for that to happen. That means pulling out those heavy canister filters and cleaning them out more often than I definitely want to. By the way, if you use FX6 canister filters on your tanks, let us know if you have any hacks for stocking them and optimizing them for your tanks. But anyway, to avoid having to mess with those FX6s all the time, Dan doesn't have any fine filter media in his at all, just coarse foam sponges and biomedia. That's it. Then he runs this little Fluval 407 right along with him, and he sets this up as a polishing filter. That just means it's going to be geared more toward catching all those fine particles that the FX6s are going to miss now that they don't have any fine filter media. I bought a few of those 407s on Black Friday at PetSmart, and now I'm going to unbox one and set it up as a polishing filter. It comes with a lot of media to use, but we really aren't too concerned with most of it. All I really want is the long coarse sponges that go in this little doohickey, and then the coarse sponges that sit in this compartment. That's it. The other chambers would have the other filter media and biomedia and chemical filtration if you use it, which I don't. However, I'm just going to be stuffing it with some of this polyfill in those chambers. Well, I've been flapping my gums too much, and you're probably tired of it, so just listen to some nice music now and watch as I set this baby up.
I lay my head and sew my skin to this bed. And
There we go. Here's what the side view looked like before the 407, and here's what the side view looks like a few days after, and here's what it looks like after a few weeks. And here's where the best part of this whole deal is. Now I will hardly have to touch those FX6s at all, and I can just change out that polyfill in the small 407 that hardly weighs anything every month. Easy as pie. Just the way I like it.
A couple of months ago, I got a new fish called a Vieja Synspillum, or a Vieja melanura. And I've had him for a couple months now, and after quarantining him for 4 weeks, I added him to San Quentin. He's doing great in there. And I'm going to give you a little update on him and let you know that he might actually be my number 2 favorite fish in that tank now.
My Vieja Synspillum has grown quite a bit since I plopped him into his new high security prison, and he could actually have been bumped up the ladder to my second favorite American cichlid after Buck. He's probably only about 3 inches right now, but he's picking up speed as he's getting more comfortable in the tank and eating lots of food. The colors are really starting to show on him as well. These Vieja are really unique looking, not just the Synspillum, but others like the black belt too. One thing about them is their eyes. Really interesting. Different looking than most fish. You're looking at Ben Ochart's much more mature Vieja right now. Eventually, they get a big nuchal hump on their foreheads, which I'm not a huge fan of nuchal humps, but oh well, still really cool. They prefer a diet high in vegetable matter, but he's with a bunch of crazed meat eaters, so I just mix in a decent portion of Northfin veggie pellets in with the rest of the Northfin cichlid pellets, and that seems to be doing the trick so far. These fish can become quite aggressive as they mature, but they can also be more of a gentle giant in the tank, only using their power as a referee, breaking up aggression from the other inmates. I'm hoping that's what this guy does. We'll see how he gets along with Kevin the Blue Texas as they get to be about the same size. Right now, I don't even know if Kevin realizes this guy's in the tank. In case you aren't familiar with Kevin, once he started approaching the 5-inch mark, he became a bit more aggressive and started chasing my Salvini around the tank pretty regularly. If you want to learn more about that whole deal, just check out the video in the upper right. My Vieja's name is St. Vincent, named after the movie with the same name, starring Bill Murray playing the titular role. And I'd say, yeah, he's at least tied for second coolest American cichlid right now along with Sylvia, my Salvini, but just wait until these altifrons start getting some color. Then you'll see some gorgeous fish. Then you'll all see.
If you know anything about me at all, then you probably know that plants and I, we don't get along too well. We're not friends. In fact, there's horrifying folklore written just about what I've done to plants for generations. And if you saw me walking by one of your planted tanks, you'd probably actually hear him hissing at me. But I actually tried to do plants in my 180-gallon American cichlid tank a long time ago, and a lot of them died, but then I kind of recently noticed that something strange is going on in my tank.
I've kind of just been ignoring my plants in this tank because I figured if they haven't been sent home to be with the Lord yet, then it's just a matter of time. But more time has passed than I realized, and I actually think, hey, these guys are going to make it. They're survivors. I've done my best, and they still prevail. And they look pretty good, right? Green and everything. One of them has huge roots hanging down, which I should probably trim up, but I think it looks natural. And it's a reminder that he hasn't given up the ghost yet. So the other day, I'm sitting here realizing that these plants of mine are probably here for the long haul, and a thought crosses my mind. Maybe, just maybe, I should go and grab a few more of these plant things and see if they have the same resistance to death that these guys do. So I head out to PetSmart and get some more. We're talking about the easy ones here, not the difficult ones. Nothing fancy. Anubias seems to have what it takes. They try to run, but alas, there's nowhere for him to go. Let's get him ready. But guess what? I don't have any tanks that have good light for plants, and no place to put them. So now, even after I just told you about my snail problem, I think I'm just going to rinse these off and call it good. Hopefully I don't wind up with those frickin' snails all over this tank.
I wonder what it feels like to be a car passing by, and what that feels like. I just gotta sit tight. I think I'm going out this night. I just don't feel right. We wake up with champagne. Are you gonna be afraid every day? Somehow I get up twice. I'm so far from peace of mind. I gotta get ice. I'm looking over shoulder.
Not bad, right? And just look how healthy some of those other veteran plant inmates look. Wow. Look at me, a master plant keeper. Just kidding. I have no idea how any of these are still in the realm of the living. Fingers crossed.
Be sure and subscribe if you know what's good for you. Till next time, that's a wrap.